This is the zoning board of appeals for the town of Upton. Public hearing for Wednesday, April 19th at 6:30 p.m. in the lower town hall. The applications are the request for returning of the escrow amount for Lobus Company Snowflake LLC, continuation of Governor's Landing, and continuation of 27 James Road. Did anybody read the minutes over and we're good with those? Or?
Second. On to.
And there was a gentleman from a resident from the last meeting who came into our office and wanted something. We wanted to make sure that something was expressed in the minutes. Amy, do you remember?
Yeah.
Specifically?
Yeah.
It was basically a description of what his issues were, and I felt
Yeah, it was Mr. Simone who's actually out in the hallway. So I added his comments. To his
James Road.
It was a description of his comments. I felt like it was fair to include, so
Yeah, so
I honored that, or we honored that request, but I wanted to call it out to the zoning board, obviously, because somebody came in and said, hey, I think this should be in the minutes. But after he described to me what he thought should be in the minutes, I said, oh, well, I'm pretty sure you said that anyway. So yeah, let's go ahead and include it. That's fine.
Yeah, I don't have a problem. It's fine. You guys, I trust you.
Whether they were going to continue blocking these lower court rulings and keep this bill available nationwide. The court gave no explanation for why it's decided now to push that back until Friday. In two brief orders, Justice Samuelito extended the deadline, keeping the abortion with the Pristone available nationwide at least 2 more days. The Byrd administration and the drug manufacturer have asked the justice to step in and set aside or block lower rulings that would ban or greatly restrict the pill. The case is an effort by a conservative legal group in Texas to limit abortion nationwide. The FDA didn't into Pristone more than 20 years ago. Federal Judge Matthew Kaczmarek, a Trump appointee,
Team, can you please?
Authorization. An appeals court said Kaczmarek went too far, but it kept some restrictions in place, saying that the Pristone could only be used for abortion up to 7 weeks, despite FDA approval and requiring 3 visits to the doctor. The administration, federal judge, set abortion policy nationwide. The American Medical Association also is pointing to the bigger picture, calling the lower court rulings dangerous.
Okay.
So you want to read a motion on the minutes?
Just trying to find the right ones. This is the May?
No.
March.
March.
We haven't been in May.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to. Did I miss something? I apologize. I had one like nasty headache tonight. Just like I couldn't even find stuff. It affects my vision. So it's just not good. I'm not finding it. Can I find this? Amy, it's
ABONINA.
3/15/22. That's the attachments for this week's. You find
I actually can't access my email because I have to log in.
Well, we can table it till the end.
Yeah, if you don't mind doing that, thank you, sir.
Table that to the end of the meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll get that taken care of.
All right, so first thing up is the release of funds for.
Sorry, that's me.
I can make a motion on that. This is also, I'm assuming this is all closed out, all settled, and we're.
I'm sorry. So yes, we researched the amount and verified it with both accounting and Denise, who's overseeing it.
Okay, so I make a motion that we release the meeting escrow accounts for Local Company Snowflake LLC of 149 Main Street the amount of $3,341.32.
Second, that.
Unanimous vote of the board. Ed Briggs, aye.
Eric Russell, I.
Bill Andrews, aye.
Okay, Governance Landing, you're up.
Thank you. Jeff Roloff's counsel for the applicant here, and Sean Malone, the project engineer, is also on the meeting. Sorry for clearing my throat earlier. I didn't realize my mic wasn't muted. Embarrassing. Anyways, okay, so it's been a while since we've been in front of the board. We did want to get in front of you tonight to give you a quick update. There are two sort of layout points that I want to bring to your attention that came up during DGT's peer review. And then I want to talk about how we can sort of get this process towards closure. So just by way of an update, you might remember that we came back to the ZBA with a revised layout in December. That layout was sent out for peer review by DGT, working on behalf of the planning board as well as the ZBA. DGT provided comments on that submittal late January, which we then responded to in early March. You should have received a package from Sean Malone. The package didn't really consist of any material changes to the layout. It was primarily Sean responding to stormwater comments and a few other comments. There were some planning board issues that they identified that we've been discussing with the planning board. We have met with them a couple times over the last couple months, including last week. Based on the March submittal package, DGT has provided just recently, I think it was last week or April 12, maybe the week before, last week, I guess, another round of comments. Those comments, we are in the process of responding to those now. We don't expect them to lead to any layout changes, but once we provide a response to those comments, we'll obviously send that response to the board. So we've made a lot of progress. There are two particular layout issues that DGT identified that relate to the townhouse development. So I just want to identify those for you to make sure that you're aware of those topics. And, we're hoping that you'll agree with us that they don't warrant any changes to the layout. And once we go through these two topics, I do want to then give you an update on the water and sewer work that we've been continuing to focus on. So with respect to the two layout issues, for the first one, I'm going to let Sean explain what it is. Just generally, it has to do with the location of our townhouses and proximity to an intersection. And the design standard that DGT is referring to in raising this topic are design standards that are set forth in the subdivision rules and regulations. So it's not clear to us that those actually apply directly here, but this is a special permit process. So DGT referenced it just as a design standard. And Sean, why don't I pass it on to you to just explain what this topic is?
Okay, great. Thanks, Jeff. For the record, Sean Malone from Oak Consulting Group, the civil engineer. And if I may share my screen here. Let's see. Okay, so this is the proposed site plan. This is the same plan that we presented to this board in December. As Jeff mentioned, there really wasn't any material changes to that with our last round of comment responses with DGT. But one of the items that they mentioned in their review as it relates to the subdivision regs is these driveways here. In the subdivision regs, there is a requirement that a driveway not be within 55 feet of an intersection. Clearly here we have an intersection with a couple of driveways that are within that 55-foot zone, if you would. We don't think that this is really an issue here with this project. This is a pretty low volume roadway and development as far as traffic stands, and we don't think that there's really going to be any significant conflict with these driveways with this intersection. So as Jeff mentioned, they mentioned it in their letter. We want to address it. We want to bring it forward to this board to get any thoughts and response from the zoning board with this issue.
And excuse me, I'll just add, DGT didn't raise any or express any concerns related to this. It just mentioned it as a deviation from that design standard. We discussed it with the planning board. The planning board didn't express any concerns either, but they basically said, that's in the townhouse development. Let the ZBA, bring this to the ZBA's attention. If they have an issue with it, we'll defer to them on whether or not, it presents an issue or not. So that's one issue, and we're not looking for a vote or anything like that tonight. We just wanted to bring that to your attention, and our hope is that you don't see it as a big issue and that ultimately you'll be comfortable with this layout. Obviously, if somebody is really concerned about this, we want to know, because if we are going to adjust the layout, we want to do that sooner than later. The second issue, and I might share my screen if I can, Sean, if you can stop. The second issue relates to the requirement for open space within townhouse developments. Sorry, looks like I need to update a driver, not now. Hopefully I can do this. Okay. So this is the requirement from the townhouse provisions within the zoning bylaw that comes into play here. The requirement is that there be at least 8,000 square feet of usable common open space per dwelling unit. For our project, we have that, and we've identified the open space on the plans in this by using these hashed lines. So this is an excerpt from the plan, and this area that has these little, what would you call those, Sean?
The scallop hatches.
Yeah, these little hatches are the areas that we counted in our open space calculation. So the provision goes on to say, usable common open space shall mean areas left substantially in a natural state or improved by landscaping and primarily designed and intended for the active and passive recreation of the occupants of the dwelling units. Usable common open space shall not include street rights of way, open parking or service areas, driveways, easements for above ground utilities, laundry drying areas, required front yards, landscaped area around the buildings, or any other land deemed unsuitable by the planning board for reasons of excessive slope or poor drainage. DGT commented that, a lot of our open space consists of wetlands and slopes. And so DGT raised the question really to the planning board as to whether or not it viewed these as suitable open space areas. This letter that I'm sharing with you here actually went to the planning board because we brought it to their attention and wanted to make sure that the zoning bylaw gave the planning board, I'm not sure why the planning board was brought into this townhouse provision, but that's the way the zoning bylaw reads. So we presented this to the planning board. We explained our view that we think the areas we counted as open space should qualify as open space. The majority of them are areas being left substantially in a natural state, and the areas that are going to be altered and sort of man-made landscaped areas are areas that do provide appropriate drainage and don't involve excessive slopes. So we vetted this issue with the planning board, giving it the opportunity to make this determination that some of the areas we included were not suitable. And the planning board basically said, they didn't express any position on it one way or the other. They were a little bit perplexed as to why they were involved at all. And like the other issue, they basically said, I think we should just defer to the zoning board. I mean, obviously, it had the opportunity to deem our proposed open space areas as unsuitable. It opted not to do that and just said, we'll leave it to the ZBA. They're the special permit granting authority. And that was that. So that's where we left it. Again, though, we think as I mentioned, most of the area here that we're counting as open space falls into this category of areas left substantially in a natural state. So we think it's appropriate areas for open space. We actually think, these areas that we're protecting, we're running a walking trail through them. I mean, those are areas of the highest value in terms of protecting open space. So we just thought we'd bring that to your attention. DGT noted it in its letter. The planning board didn't express any disagreement with it. And we're hoping that you are also okay with the open space areas as we've designated them on the plan. So those are the two issues I just wanted to bring to your attention. Again, we're not looking for a vote or anything. Ultimately, when you get to a position of voting on the project or not, you'll be telling us whether or not you're okay with the layout. So that gets us to, and I'm happy to respond to any questions that you have now, or I'll just move on to the water sewer utility run status.
I have one quick question.
Yep.
I have brought up before about some type of an area that could serve as a park or equivalent for younger children to have a place to throw a ball without being restricted by neighbors and stuff. Is that still in your?
We do think there's appropriate space for that. And Sean, I don't know if it would be helpful for you to pull up the plan and just identify that.
Sure.
It's tough on the scale of this plan, but if you zoom into it, you'll see I think you'll see that there's plenty of room there for kids to play around.
Yeah, so we did look at that, and with our grading, we have some significant area in between these buildings, behind these buildings, for something like a ball or play ball or something along those lines. There's also some area over in this area. It's in the buffer zone. But I think I can't remember if it was this board had mentioned, maybe community gardens, something of that nature. This is an area that could be reserved to that pending permitting with Conservation Commission. But to answer your question, Sarah, yes, we do believe there is significant lawn open area for people to congregate, recreate, play ball, what have you.
Well, as long as it's put onto their deeds and stuff so that, I've dealt with places that have common areas before, but a lot of people still have complaints about people doing certain things in common areas. So just would want to make sure that, somewhere down the road that this is not going to be changed and they're going to say, well, we can't do that anymore. It should be in some type of deed restriction or something that shows that, these children and stuff have a place to play without, having a lot of complaints.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think that topic could be addressed in a condition if you wanted to do that. In other words, a condition that would require the homeowner documents to provide for, these recreational activities within the common areas, or at least some portion of them. So, Michael, I just mentioned that. I don't know. You and I will probably be working together on drafting the set of conditions, but we should both make a note to address that issue in that effort.
Yeah, I was just attempting to write it down. Can you repeat that? What you suggested?
Basically, Michael, it would be, as I'm thinking about it, it would be a condition that requires the homeowner documents, the association documents, to explicitly allow, recreational activities in the common areas, or at least designated common areas, so that children and even adults have places to engage in recreational activities and not just passive recreation.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
So that's no problem. Okay, now let's get to the, Sean, if you want to stop sharing, I think now we're just going to be talking about utilities here. So we do want to, we want to try to get these permitting proceedings to closure. And the biggest, we have a few comments that we still need to respond to of DGTs, but we expect to deal with those pretty quickly. The big issue out here remains the water and sewer connections, and everyone's preference is for us to connect to utilities in Milford Street. We are totally fine with that, and my client has offered to contribute money towards that effort in an amount that would be similar to what it would expect to spend if it were building its own cross-country route, which is the alternative route that we had proposed. The problem is that there's a lot of uncertainty as to whether or not that utility project in Milford Street is ever going to happen. And I can say the town is working hard, I believe, in trying to make that happen. They secured a grant from the MassWorks program last fall to do additional design work. So they've been using those funds to proceed with that work. They've hired a contractor to help them out. DPW is working on it. I know that the town manager and DPW feel confident that they're going to then be able to apply for and secure a grant for the construction of these utilities, or at least one that would cover the majority of those costs. The problem is that the design work and that application process is all going to be done over the next few months. And then there's no decision made on that application until probably October or maybe November. So we'd like to get permits in hand soon because we feel like we're otherwise at the end of the process. But if we had permits that required us to connect to utilities that don't exist and might never exist, that's not a position that's going to be very helpful to my client. They're not going to be able to start the work for the project. They're not going to be able to secure construction financing. So we really are trying to find a way to get the cross-country route that we had proposed approved now as a backup. So in other words, and we discussed this with the planning board, we would propose a condition in their approval that would require us to connect to the Milford Street utilities so long as they're actually installed at some point. You know, we have to work on the language here, but by some date certain. And if they're not, you know, if the funding falls through or for some other reason the town doesn't commit to building those out, then we want approval now in hand. We want to know that we've got this approval for the backup route. So as part of the effort to line up that backup, we asked DGT to do a sort of feasibility analysis, a review of that alternative route to confirm that the route is actually a viable, feasible route. So DGT has started that effort. They've tried to get some information from DPW, and as of their last peer review letter, they hadn't gotten what they needed yet. They were looking for the construction standards that would apply, any local construction standards that would apply. We also need to do some more wetlands flagging out there because that route does involve 2 stream crossings. We had secured a wetlands permit for those crossings years ago through a DEP review process, but that approval has long expired. So we're going to continue working with DGT. We're going to go out there and do some further analysis of the wetlands in the area of those crossings. We're going to present that information to the Conservation Commission. Basically, we're going to undertake the efforts we need to with the Planning Board and the Conservation Commission to secure approvals as part of their permits for this project, for that alternative route as a backup. That's our goal. Now, with respect to the ZBA, we could, so that's going to take some time. With respect to the ZBA process, I'd like to work with Michael on a draft set of conditions and hopefully find a way for you to issue your permit. I mean, assuming you ultimately vote to approve this, to issue your permit in a way that defers to the planning board on how we handle this sort of dilemma that we have with the utility connections. In other words, it could, I mean, I haven't drafted this up yet. I'll work with Michael on something for you to sink your teeth into and think about, but something that might read that, you know, you would require us to connect to utilities in Milford Street, you know, except to the extent the planning board otherwise approves the cross-country route as a backup in the event those utilities aren't constructed by some date certain. And then instead of you sort of working through and approving that backup route on your own, you issue your decision and then you defer to the planning board on the ultimate outcome of that issue. So that's one possibility. I throw it out there for any reaction that you have to that. And otherwise, I'm hoping I can start working with Michael on a draft set of conditions for you to consider as you're getting closer to a vote on this project. And then, you know, once we've satisfied DGT's comments completely, and we have that set of conditions in front of you, at that point, I'm hoping you'll be in a position where you feel like you can vote. How's that all sound?
Myself sounds good. I do want to ask Mike, where is the town on this, on our end of it?
In regards to obtaining the funding,
And we didn't, yes, and where are we? How is it looking from our point of view for getting all the stuff that they need?
we obtained funding for the MassWorks program last year for the design of the sewer extension. I believe we're at like just about 25% completion for the design of that. I should be meeting with our engineer and town manager and DPW director next week to gear up for the submittal of the new MassWorks grant program, which is due, I believe it's June 1st or close to that. And so we should be submitting for the funding for the construction of the sewer at that point. And obviously, like Attorney Rolls was just explaining, you know, later this year, knowing whether or not we have secured that funding. So that's where we are with that.
As
What would a construction timeframe look like? If he's asking for approval contingent, you know, to a date certain for the construction to be completed, is that realistic? Is that?
I don't know a realistic date for that as of yet. That's a question I would have to ask our engineers next week when I meet with them.
have they done enough to know what the cost? I mean, because I think we were hearing 1.5 before or something.
Yeah, I think we have a relative cost in mind, but I don't know those numbers off the top of my head. I know, like Attorney Rolls was just saying, that they proposed a contribution, so they have some sort of understanding of what that would cost, but at least on their side of things, right? They understand what it would cost to do the cross country, or you know, a ballpark of that number. So I assume we know ballpark of what it will cost to construct. I don't have those figures in hand.
I had heard some. Do you remember? Ted, what are you thinking?
Well, I'm like majority of the towns that wanted to go up 140. I wouldn't probably object if there wasn't any other way to do it, but you know, it had to go with the cross-country route. But you know, it's not beneficial to the town really to do that.
Yeah.
We do have comments from fire, and I don't think we have formal comments from DPW director on it, but both of them are not obviously fans of that.
Cross-country.
Yeah, with the understanding in respect to the applicant, Attorney Roloff's, that is, I'll say worst case scenario, you know, pardon the expression, but you know, the best case scenario and the desired route is to extend down 140, and the town staff does not want to see it go the cross country route if we can avoid that.
Right.
How soon does it need to be, would the work on 140 need to be completed for that to be useful for you? To avoid using the alternative route?
We're happy to work with the town on dates that are realistic. I think the bigger concern is just making sure that there's a commitment for it to happen in the near future. So, right now, the town doesn't have funding. There's so many uncertainties that they don't feel like they can rely on it, and no bank is going to rely on it. The uncertainties are too great. If, come October, if you've got a grant awarded and the town gets whatever approvals it needs locally to proceed with the project, and it's just a question of when it's going to do it, at that point we're fine. Like we're good, unless there's something about the approval to proceed that leads us to think it's going to be a really long project. But I don't think we're going to have any problems working out reasonable schedules, and the certainties then are high enough if the funds are in hand and the town is committed to proceeding based upon having those funds.
Jeff, have you guys had a discussion with the selectmen on the cost of the project and your contribution? And I'm assuming the town is just going to be filling the gap between those two things. Have you done any direct negotiations with the selectmen yet on that?
Well, we had preliminary discussions with the selectmen and then again through the town manager on a number of occasions. So last year, we actually were helping the town apply for the original MassWorks grants. And as part of that effort, that's where we were spelling out, we had cost estimates then for the Milford Street project. We had a contribution amount that my client committed to, and so the discussion was happening then. Since then, more design work has been done and the estimates have been refined, and the cost of this Milford Street run is actually higher, I think, than what people had projected last June. So it's a higher total cost. I'm assuming that's going to lead to a request for more money from the MassWorks program, but then it'll be combined with the same level of funding that my client committed to during the last application cycle. And I think that the number is 3 million and change, and something like that. It's a pretty significant cost. But they're hoping to get most of that covered by the MassWorks grant, and I cannot remember the projected amount. My client was proposing to contribute the amount of money that it had estimated the utility run, the cross-country utility run, would cost it. And so we had worked with DPW and their consultants, Ty and Bond, to come up with cost estimates for that cross-country route that we all agreed to. And that was the amount that my client committed to contributing to the Milford Street project. I don't remember what that was, but it was, I think, on the order of like 700,000. I'm afraid to say that because it's been a while since I've looked at that number. And that because that's that cross-country route for my client is obviously a way cheaper route. The construction associated with it is a lot easier than constructing it up Milford Street. I'll just add that with respect to that MassWorks grant application, and then going back to the local permitting scene here, the application is a stronger application the farther we are in permitting. So if we have local permits in hand by June, or some of them by June, that would be helpful because the state doesn't want to provide grants for projects that have their own uncertainties associated with it. So if we can secure any approvals for our project that just hinges on the utility route that the application relates to, that will help the application in its chances of success.
How far up 140 is the Mass DOT project?
Simon?
No, I'm talking about the road
Reconstruction.
because that determines, I don't know how fast they're gonna work, but if they were to start at the top of the hill and come down, after they do their work, they're not gonna want to tow up.
It's a good question. We actually looked into that a little bit with DOT. They're not going that far up Milford Street. Right, Sean? I mean, Sean actually had a conversation with them. They're not going that far up Milford Street, but we agree with you. If this utility project is going to happen, it's better that it happens before that roadway work is done. So we are tuned into that, and it's a topic of conversation it'll be addressed in the MassWorks grant also. The fact that it's a project to be coordinated with DOT.
And right now, the TIP project is showing as ending at Elm Street.
Element truck.
Yeah.
I wonder if they can hold off doing the final paving until this is done. But if it's a TIP project, it takes forever anyway.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
They're out surveying today because we got a call from a resident.
Yeah. I myself, I want to hold the toes to the fire for getting down Main Street. Obviously, if the town can't hold up their end of it, you know, I mean, that's just not fair to these guys. I just don't know what that date should be.
I mean, actually, you know, when you,
Well, you don't have to talk, you don't have to speculate as to what that date would be tonight.
no,
Yeah.
I'm gonna have a conversation hopefully next week,
Mhm.
and we can come back with some, you know, obviously I'll be in contact with Attorney Roloff, so we can have something to this board and possibly the planning board, sort of for the next round. You know what I mean? So, and get us, you know,
Because they had the same conversation with planning.
yeah, and the other thing is too, like, you can't, with the number of houses that are involved, even though the new senior center was hooked up, but it would change. But with the number of houses and businesses that are involved going up the hill, depending on what the cost would come out to, you know, to me, if it came out to like $40,000 a house, the hookup fee is only $5,000. So they're not gonna, to me, that's not a smart move for the town. I mean, they are extending the thing, but, you know, it's not cost efficient, but, you know, that's just my.
Well, I mean, it has to be hitched to town sewer somehow up there, but,
Right,
you know, they should have allowed the plaza to get hitched in years ago. Of that empty plug across from there.
Yeah.
The plaza was down.
that's, Kevin,
So in terms of the condition then, are you asking for it to be contingent on completion of construction or just securing the commitments for funds and necessary local permits?
I think it's the latter.
Okay.
I mean, and having that commitment in place by some, you know, specified date.
Okay.
Yeah. And again, you know, we can work out, I guess, you know, let's revisit this question, but so one of the questions I have for the ZBA is whether you'll want to sort of nail down the details of that, of the condition that contemplates a requirement to connect to the town infrastructure in Milford Street, so long as there's funding and a commitment for that to happen by some date, or if you would be willing to, you know, require a connection to the Milford Street utilities, except to the extent backup is approved by the planning board and then subject to whatever conditions the planning board identifies. And the reason I'm saying that is this condition that we're talking about and identifying the date and confirming the feasibility of the route and everything else might take more time. We might not resolve the details of that until after the MassWorks application has to go in. So if we can come up with a condition that would enable you to issue a decision with language that you're comfortable with, but then ultimately the backup wouldn't be approved by you per se in your own decision. It would punt it over to the planning board. I mean, I have to work with Michael on the language, obviously, and then you'll have to see it, of course, to know if you're comfortable with it. But I'm trying to find a way for the ZBA permit to be issued before June, even if we haven't yet finished DGT's feasibility analysis and come up with the exact language and schedule for this more complicated condition that we're going to try to incorporate into the planning board decision. I don't think it's anything you can really deliberate on or think too hard about tonight because you don't have the language in front of you. So we need to get that to you so you can see it and think about it.
Can you work with Mike on that?
Yeah.
And when you say before June, only got one more meeting after tonight before June.
I know. You
so
only
we-
have one in May?
Yeah. So
Yeah,
we
you guys meet once a month.
Be ready for it. Be ready at that meeting. That's what you're asking for.
Yeah, I mean, we'll try, and then alternatively, Michael, I don't know if we can get the boards to, at the very least, issue letters that they have had these hearings open for. They've been reviewing this project. I'm trying to think of what we can provide with the MassWorks application that gives them comfort that we're close to getting our project approved, which hinges on this utility project, and that. We're linking the utility project to our project for the MassWorks application. We're also linking it together for the MEPA review that we're going to be doing, which is going to cover the town's utility project and our project. I mean, that's how we're trying to line it up. So if we can't...
If you're thinking about just obtaining a letter of support from this board to attach to that application, that's definitely something I can hammer out tonight.
Yeah.
And just by asking the board that they, through its chair, sign a letter of support for the construction, for the MassWorks grant, to extend the sewer. And I can, write the language for that. It's going to be a paragraph essentially, not much more.
Yep.
So.
Just as a question, when do you expect to break ground?
My guess is, given that we need to go through MEPA, my guess is it wouldn't happen until later this year. If everything went well, maybe this fall. We haven't started MEPA yet, and that's probably going to take 3 months. So if we started on that right away and we got moving productively, we could start this fall. But again, that's not going to happen if there's not a defined utility connection in place.
Someone said it the other night, this is something that's been going on. It's this piece of property for 20 years or something.
Wait.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't think we can, I don't think there's anything further action we can take tonight until we see that language.
Yep.
But I definitely, the heads up.
Does the board, do you have any other, obviously I'll meet with, I guess, the team, the MassWorks application team, between now and the next meeting. I'll obviously be in contact with Attorney Roloffs. Anything else the board wants me to get from other departments, answers on questions you may have? Does it need to be from other departments? Can be, from whoever.
I think I'll probably at some point just go down to DPW and visit him just for 5 minutes, see where he is on it. If that's okay with the board.
No, and how where the selectmen and town manager fall into it.
Yeah. I mean, if everyone's in the same parade, we're trying to push this forward together. I don't want to be against that, but on the other hand, we really want to go down the Milford Street.
Right.
But
see, you've always got that problem that if the cost is kind of high for the town itself, you get all the people like myself that are on septic system. And we're saying, well, what does this benefit us?
Yeah.
So if the town is going to be on the hook for, say, debt exclusion of $2 million or whatever it is, I think that's going to be kind of a tough sell too. We're supposed to be a user paid system, you know, it falls into, you know, typical straits.
Yeah.
So I don't really know, you know.
But I think we've got to, either way, we can only hold him up for so long.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, this project aside, the extension of that sewer down Milford Street is an economic development driver.
Right.
It's, you know,
Yeah.
we'd be looking to attract business or some other sort of use to utilize the sewer that would contribute.
Right, but you'd have
tax dollars.
to extend it further though, because you don't have that much general business and stuff you have that
Right.
small lot across from Gasco. And other than that, it's residential going up the hill.
Sure.
So,
But
you
it
know,
gets-
as far as, that's what happened years ago. We tried to get not digital, we tried to get EMC to come in
Yeah.
and there was no water sewer, so they just said, hey.
Right.
Right, but at least it's that much closer.
Yeah.
And in all honesty, I think it's through the worst part of it. It's that is ledge,
Oh,
the
yeah.
whole stretch, you know, and definitely, I mean, that they should have gotten that they should have done the plaza. That would have gotten it, you know, a quarter mile, and then this would have been even cheaper. All right,
Does the board have any comments or input on the open space question that was raised?
Just want to know, I mean, the bylaw clearly puts that on the planning board, so I just want to know what they want from us. And it seems to suggest that they would need to affirmatively say it's unsuitable.
yes,
To, you know, for us to rule it out. So I'm just wondering, what do they want from us?
It might be worth, I guess, and we can memorialize it in the minutes, just that the zoning board is kind of formally asking the planning board to weigh in on that, because Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, the planning board was in the same exact boat of, why isn't this a zoning board responsibility? Why is it deferring to us?
Yeah.
And then I believe it was the chairman who said, well, why doesn't the zoning board just ask us directly if they want help on that?
yeah, I remember hearing that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, I'm just wondering what they want, because I mean, the bylaw would make a lot more sense if it said the special permit granting authority rather than the planning. That's like the planning board.
Jeff had offered it last meeting. He thought that it was probably a typo.
Yeah, I do. I totally agree. I think it's just a typo that the planning board is referenced there, but
But it's what
Yeah,
it says.
Unfortunately, it is what it is, yeah.
But
sadly.
the rules say that 8,000 square feet per unit.
Mhm.
And the problem with that is that ledge and wetlands are not technically usable. So,
Well, it breaks it into two categories: areas that are substantially in a natural state, or areas that are improved by landscaping designed intended
Right.
for active and passive recreation. So areas left in a substantially natural state can qualify, unless the planning board says otherwise.
I mean, you know, we got beat on another. You know,
I mean, I think this board has a decision. You can go one of two ways. Either you could accept what we proposed because we presented this issue to the planning board and they opted not to render our proposed open space unsuitable, even though we put this squarely in front of them. They decided to just defer to you. So you can just leave it at that and make your own independent judgment on it. Or you could ask them to affirmatively say, yes, it's okay, or no, it's not okay. It's up to you. I think it's one of those two avenues.
right, but if they want to leave it up to us, then let us decide what we want to do.
Well, the open space, the other thing is the townhouses out front don't have a lot of open space, but obviously there's a tremendous amount in the back. Is what's out in the back being counted towards the townhouses or?
No, what's out in the back is the senior, there's a lot line boundary there. So we don't include any of the land that's within the senior housing lot.
Okay.
So what you'll see is that we include most of the open space for the townhouse development are the wetland areas to the left of the
Yeah.
townhouse units. And then we counted some of the area at the base of the retaining wall behind the units, not the immediate backyards, but the area that's in front of the wall there. I mean, there are other areas we could count. I think the big question is really the wetlands. I mean, if you or the planning board determine that the wetland areas can't be counted, this whole project would disappear. I mean, because that's the majority of the land and area that we've counted as open space are these natural areas that we're proposing to put a conservation restriction on. And
Yeah, because the
Yeah.
conservation, they're gonna be really limited on what you could do with that particular use, even though stays in its natural state, but, you're not gonna be able to touch through it and everything, so.
yeah,
Uh,
that is for sure. Yep.
Yeah, the little boundary markers, I had to make some of those. I think I had some playing in the middle. Yeah.
But I mean, if we, if worst comes to worst, we can post another meeting for ourselves.
True.
Just have that 48 hours notice. No,
Or
I'm just saying,
we can even do a joint one.
I don't know,
I'm just saying that if we run into a problem and we need to do it before a May meeting or whatever.
Yeah,
Maybe it's the 17th.
yes.
I calendar.
That's a month, right, basically.
Oh, and Jeff, for planning board, we had pushed it to May 9, but that's the town election day. So I'll get with you to get an extension beyond that. Because we're probably not going to have that meeting because it's on the election.
Okay.
So May 17th, you said?
Third Wednesday on.
ZBA. Yeah, I mean, I understand your plight, and I think we can work it out with Michael and work it out. I do want to talk to DPW and the town. I've just touched base with Tom, and if you can do that, you're in here all the time. DPW, I don't mind going down there and saying hi to them.
And I will say, I mean, DPW, we know they're not receptive at all to this cross-country route. They've never liked it. They don't like it. We totally get that. Our only point to DPW is we're not trying to convince DPW to authorize that route as the primary route. We're happy to continue working with the town to connect to the utilities in Milford Street. We know that that's the preferred route, and we are totally fine with that, and we're willing to contribute to it. But we can't set it up so that our project lives or dies based on this MassWorks grant that the town's project is resting on. I mean, that just doesn't make sense. Well, and by the way, the cross-country route that we're proposing doesn't have to be a private route only serving our project. Like, that route would also get these utilities out all the way out to Milford Street to this end of town, and would serve the same purpose as the Milford Street route in terms of providing water and sewer utilities closer to this commercial district that you're trying to get developed at some point down the road. So in any event, when you go to DPW, I'm just giving you a heads up. They don't like the cross-country route. We've heard it for 20 years, and we get it.
So Jeff, are you using the easement from the railroad, or are you going through private?
No,
property?
we are. We have the easement from the railroad. We've got the legal rights. We secured those years ago, and they're totally intact. Yeah.
Well, question for you. If we allowed you to go the back way.
Yep.
I prefer not to. I'll be blunt.
Yep.
You give an easement to the town to allow to use the sewer going into your place?
Yes, we would grant the town all the easements and rights it needed to essentially access that utilities for maintenance, to allow future connections and everything else. It would serve exactly the same purpose as the Milford Street route. Yes.
Okay.
And we would construct it. We would construct it with the same capacity also, so that it would be large enough to accommodate the future flows from projects further south on Milford Street. That was always the plan.
Okay. Glad to clarify that, because that's makes it more palatable if we have to go with the backup.
Yep.
anything else we can solve on this, or we can go on to James Road, or?
Yeah, I guess, are you finished, Jeff, or?
Yeah, I'm done. So let me just formally request a continuance to your meeting on what, May 17th?
Yeah.
And if you
Okay.
could vote on that so that the public knows for certain that we've been continued to that date, that'd be great.
Make a motion to continue this to May 17th.
Second,
Unanimous vote of the board, Ted Briggs, aye.
Eric Russell, I.
Bill Andrews, aye.
Just make sure you send your letter in,
Except
giving us,
the-
giving us the continuation.
Yes.
Yep, happy to do that. I'll
Okay,
work with
thank you.
Michael on that. Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Jeff.
Okay, thank you. All right. Okay, now,
You'll see on this. These two ways, the village. The road frontage, I mean, the road narrowing, the sidewalk narrowing. I am not in favor of that, but I could be in favor if they were going to take the money that they're saving and apply it to the other.
yeah. It was funny because in the planning board discussion of it, they weren't at all worried about the sidewalk on one side.
No, it's not that they want to go from 5 foot to whatever. And they want to go
30 down to 25,
Yeah.
two 5 foots on each, a 5 foot on
Right.
each side. And I
But
think
the point, on my point is that.
they're saving money.
People come into town. And originally we were gonna get 8 affordables, now it's no affordable.
Yes.
Originally the town was saying, yes, you have to use 140.
Yeah.
So what happens is that, and I was gonna bring up to him if we got that far. By giving you the 2 foot narrower of the road and the sidewalk,
You're saving.
what is the benefit to the town for that?
Yeah.
And if they are gonna save that money, if it's gonna be contributed toward the 140 thing.
Yeah.
You know,
Be above and beyond what they're gonna go if they go the back.
right,
I
right,
concur.
if not,
I can concur.
Yeah.
Okay.
all right, guys, I'll leave you and, you can take it on.
Before you go, I apologize. I don't believe I did attach the minutes.
Okay.
So, but in my defense, no one reviewed what I sent and noticed it. So I did send it. I don't know if it's allowed to review it at the next meeting with both minutes. When you
Yeah,
review
we
that.
can continue, we'll
We've been
continue,
3 or 4 behind it.
yeah,
Okay,
we'll continue.
So I
We
just
didn't
apologize.
vote on
you're gonna, I had not sent
Look
them.
at my hair over this
Oh.
stuff.
it.
So I just sent them and we will review it next.
No, that's fine.
Thank you.
Anyways. So. You want to be chairman, Rich? Or is it my turn?
Sure.
Here we are. All right, 27 James Road. So we had a lot of activity. We got stand text reviews. And we got, LPI responses. Get a chance to go through. You got to throw that in front of you. And where are we on calendar with this?
You said that, I was just doing that math.
Yeah.
It appears. You just asked that. The original date of the public hearing was May 18th, 2022. Originally, you have 180 days, which Brett would have brought it to 11/14/2022. The town and the applicant agreed to 6 extensions for an additional 183 days. So add the 180 and the 183 for additional 363 days.
Whole year.
Brings us to May 16th, 2023.
Just talked about our meeting being May 17th, right? So basically tonight's at night. Unless we schedule another meeting. So. That's why I see these things, because otherwise it would be an automatic.
We can talk about that, and if you want to extend.
Sometimes I like to get stuff off of our plates too. All right. Anyways. Did you guys have any comments on the Stantec review or LPI? The only thing that was sticking out to me was the Stantec mentioned there was one
area increased.
increase of runoff. And I remember which unit it is. Is there any,
Do we have a map showing where that point is?
yes, about that.
Did you get the response, our response to the Stantec?
Yes, we got
I
it.
did see
Okay.
that.
Yeah, we got the I was Swide land and
Yes,
Yeah.
and we have, two engineers from the planning here this evening,
oh, good.
Hassling and Mark Gates.
One of my big concerns is I don't want stormwater coming off. We know it's a hill and it runs down towards his property. He's expressed a concern with his septic system. He doesn't want the water inundating his septic system. And we know there's a hill there. Can we swale it at the bottom end? I know we're leaving, how many feet? I don't have it off the top of my head. There's a significant buffer zone there.
There's a large buffer that we provide.
It is a pretty large buffer.
33,000 square, roughly
Yeah.
33,000 square feet.
So the letter kind of states it, but the site has no discernible concentrated flows off of it.
Mhm.
So everything's pretty well just sheet flowing off.
Yeah.
I was in designing this, I was really hoping not to concentrate any flows, just everything right the way it is. If we put a swale in, yeah, we might get the numbers down below what they were originally. You know, I'll get, we've added a whole bunch of energy to water that's, facing on the property.
Yeah, I mean, it's a significant buffer zone. I mean, that's a lot. Just trying to alleviate your concerns, Look the map. Yes.
Yeah, I'd love to see where this is relative to this house.
Let's see.
Yeah, which is the properties up on the north side.
With the James Road, we said James Road. It's right there.
In terms of the comment about the requirement that you meet the design standards to the maximum extent practicable, how does this qualify as redevelopment?
It's got an existing house and driveway this big. So that's the redevelopment portion. The other portion of it is, it falls under a small residential development under stormwater management standards. If you look at the checklist, item number 7 on the stormwater checklist,
Yeah,
that says redevelopment and small residential. So if it's in that category. I guess it's like the beginning of the stormwater.
So,
what?
yeah. I was curious.
State
About,
your name.
yeah,
It's Mark Gates.
yeah. Under redevelopment, it says it's defined as rehabilitation, expansion projects on previous developed sites, provided the redevelopment results in no net increase in pervious area.
Right. But
So is there,
like I said, it's a combination of the two. Small residential developments, fewer four units of fewer, require no stormwater management. 5 to 9 is maximum extent practical. Beyond that, full compliance. So that's why I say if you refer back to the stormwater checklist, which is the beginning of the stormwater report.
Mhm.
We probably the 4th and 5th page of that as standard 7. And it says redevelopment, say other small residential projects.
oh, okay.
I believe the second one plus you.
Yeah, I know. It's okay. I can enlarge pretty well. So yeah, I actually have that on the, I have that on the checklist too. Only that I'd say a lot of homework for this meeting.
Yeah, it's also.
That's what I'm looking at right now too.
Last set was the highlighted one.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, the
I'll
color.
see it now. Excuse me.
Did you happen to pull up the, perk from the neighbor down the building health? Did you not? You didn't look at it again? What's some data?
I'm not reading under CG.
We would want to add that as a condition as part of our final design.
Yeah, and also, I'd like to, you know, you said there was another one where he was concerned and said you need to do vehicle testing.
Yeah.
And as this, you know, if you get down 6 inches, you get ledge. So you said just something.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, and I think that would be something I would want as a condition of approval was that the site, you know, if you've got some of these things designed in there, but if it's a ledge in there, you're gonna have to do something.
It would have to be pretty high. You put the information systems in areas filling anyways, so no one gonna be.
Okay.
But we'll, anytime, there should be a condition that any changes
Yeah,
should be put back to the town.
Did Stantec, look at the responses?
Yeah, but they obviously didn't have. They don't have them for tonight.
he usually calls me when he looks at stuff.
Yeah, I just want to hear, from Stantec as to whether they evaluated, whether they took a look at the analysis of what land planning he considered to be practicable steps. I know everything listed in here is from the menu and the stormwater handbook, but I know that it also suggests other measures can be practicable. So I'm just curious whether Stantec is on that.
My challenge for that is how do we find out you have to vote tonight? Because the clock's up. Unless we do another meeting.
We'd be willing to have a condition that if you review it, which we'll have to go back to do anyway with our final plans.
Yeah.
If at that time or in the meantime,
He has a concern.
deems anything that could be differently done at a reasonable cost.
Yeah.
Then we'll take a look at that. It might be the last page. Yeah. The document area is the area not being disturbed.
Where on there is the point that was identified as having hired discharge?
We had broken.
Yeah, you go for it.
So we had basically broken this up into 3 areas. What came onto the street here,
Yeah.
what came over to the Sabata, and then what went north. We didn't further split it down that property line because, you know, the slope's pretty consistent. But like I said, there's no discernible channel in the site. So this was the area. To give you an idea what the actual increase was, it was like 0.1 CFS, a 100-year storm. You can consider that that's basically 3/4 of water spread over 300 feet. additional added every second for a period of 3 minutes.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking.
Okay.
Mr. Andrews, can I say something? Yeah, we always listen.
I just wanted to sort of reiterate a little bit what I spoke about at the last meeting. And I'm not sure about the comment that you were making, that it's just a normal, you were making it sound like it's just a level area. Everything's just gonna perfect.
Well, it's a consistent slope.
Okay. But if you look here now, you've got the rock outcrop up around 434, 436 feet right up here where it's flat. And it just continues to drop down to my property over here, down to what I'm looking here at 404. So from 436 to 404, you have a very deep dive down toward my property. You can see by the topographical lines here. My raised system is right here, right up against the property line. And you're talking about putting these infiltrators down on my side over here, where you're going to put a big concentration of water off of the roofs. And not only that, but this whole area here, if you just stand back and look right now, this is all woods. So that's leaching straight down. This all now is going to be hardscape. However, driveways, buildings, whatever else you're putting this permeable pavement, that doesn't really mean anything to me, because that can be paved in the future. I have $20,000 worth of gravel that I put in 16 years ago for this raised system. As this water is finding its way down, you're putting the concentration of water in these infiltration systems, not to mention this whole hardscape, that water is running down this way, and water underground is going to find that gravel, whether it finds it tomorrow, 6 months from now, or a year from now. As soon as it finds my gravel bed, which it does, it's going to start flowing in that direction. And in that direction, it's just going to continue to cause an underground stream that's going to inundate my system. And you can see the topography continues to come down across my property, down to my house. I'm going to be experiencing black water coming across all of my property. How am I going to deal with that at that point?
Okay, so.
And it's more than likely that's going to happen, maybe in a year, maybe in 2 years, but that's what water does. It finds its channel, and then it goes to the place of least resistance.
It does, but I mean, I've actually installed some of these things. Infiltration systems are engineered, and this is going to sound really strange. Water that comes down from a roof that you collect and go to the infiltration system can be calculated and engineered and managed. The water that's harder to deal with is what's flowing underneath. You know, I tried to explain to the neighbors earlier. This is the 40B regulations. It either comes through us as a board and we can put conditions on it, okay? Or it goes through the state and we can put no conditions on it. So I don't want to lie to you people. I don't. I want to be honest with you. If it comes through us, we can put conditions on it.
Okay.
If it goes through the state, we can't.
Okay, I can only present my argument.
Right.
And my argument also is basically the concentration of water that's coming off of those roofs and the concentration of water of all this hardscape is much more coming down my way that is going to find its way to that raised system. And you have to keep in mind, even though these infiltration systems are designed on a level surface to distribute the water down, this is not a level surface. So these infiltration systems are going here, but the wall of my property, I feel, is going to be perking right out the side of my property, coming down toward my house, and especially finding that gravel bed.
I want to sketch something for you because this is going to sound stupid. I've been in the friggin' ditches doing stuff like this. Come over here. I just want to show you a sketch. Okay, so I've got a system. My septic system is on a hill, and my house is below the hill. The low part.
Like mine.
Okay. So my septic, and you would think that it's a level system. It's not. So you put in a D box in this particular case, and you'll say you have three outlets coming out of the D box or three circles. Your first foot is level in all three or 3 feet. Then they go down and the pipes go off across the hill topographically. So they're level with inside the hill, but coming off the D box, they're level with each other here. So even though you're on a hillside, it's not a system, here's the hill, and you put in something like this. It's not like that. It's different than that. And I would.
The owners, I was there when they delivered this $20,000 worth of gravel.
Right.
That whole raised system is gravel. That whole hill is gravel where that water is going to be perking down and finding that gravel. I just don't see there's any way that is not going to inundate my system. And what do I do when black water starts coming down across my property?
But here's the weird thing. Okay, so on my
I need the engineer to understand that, the town engineer to understand how close that concentration of water from that hardscape and from those boxes, how that water is going to find my raised
I
system.
don't understand your term black water. This is going to sound my drinking well that I get daily drinking water by Board of Health only has to be 100 feet from my septic system.
Black water is what is in my leaching area. That's black
But
water. What's leaching into my leaching area is black water.
Okay.
Right from my
I'm used to
solid.
a different term for it.
But it is black water, correct? It's coming from my solid tank.
But here's the question. You're uphill of other people.
Yes, I am. And that
And-
house across the street
and-
is going to be getting that
but-
black water
Did
also.
they stop you from doing your septic system?
There was nobody there before.
Anyways,
No, but my septic system is designed to handle that. I got somebody in to perk it. We had to
Right.
get all that gravel in. So it was designed to handle that. And my septic system was not designed to handle this inundation of water coming down off of that hill. That wasn't even brought to its attention. So
I understand that. They're not generating water on the site in terms of the only way for town people, and we have countless stuff like this come through us. The only way for people to control the property around them is if they own it. Okay. If we don't approve this, okay, with a whole list of conditions, then they go to the state and they get it approved with no conditions.
the state's going to approve black water coming
State's
to my
gonna approve
property.
this faster than you can blink.
Well, I mean, I thought that so
the distance.
what protection why have we been having this meeting?
Because the
What
protect-
protection do I have at all then? In other words, you're saying to me, too bad. It's just too bad that you happen to live there. If this water does come down and inundate that system, I just have to live with it. I'm having a hard time understanding that.
They've done all the requests, they've done all the special permitting, they've done a reduction of the amount of homes, so it was a much larger amount of homes. to
We'll
begin
be
with.
asking for Stantec to take another look at it again to see if there's anything else.
Please do. And I'd like him to understand where my raised system is, because nobody has even brought that up. And that is my main concern. And that just doesn't seem to even be in the picture. Nobody seems to be concerned about that. Like I said, my system.
We want to alleviate your concerns to the maximum extent that we can. We've got a limited amount of things we can do. We can ask Stantec to look at this again. We can invite the abutters to suggest conditions that, we can review and see if those are going to be feasible for us to put in. But there's not a lot more we can do besides that.
Yeah, as part of we're providing operating and maintenance plan, which will be required to be done annually. It doesn't matter when the house changes hands or the units changes hands. That will be a requirement of the condition of this permit. So as long as this permit is valid, which means in perpetuity, we will have to maintain that. If you had a problem, if something for some reason doesn't come out, you have every right, as any citizen does, to go to the Board of Health saying, I have a situation, here it is, and have the Board of Health look at it. If it was a design flaw, a construction flaw, we'll be obligated to fix it. The runoff, as we're doing, is proposed to stay on the site as much as possible. the runoff you're stating there is no more than you're gonna get what you get every day now.
That's not true. That's not true. Maybe it's not, but you're looking at this is all now woods. Now this is all gonna be hardscape. So all of this water that's here that was perking straight down in a level area, this is fairly level up here. Now all this water, because of the topography, is gonna be coming down toward me. So there's the same amount of water, but excuse me, but there's a concentration
I
of
understand
water
it,
coming to me.
but it's not all hardscape. Okay, you do have a certain amount of water that collects in driveways and on roofs. They can deal with.
This whole area is going to be concentrating water this way. Okay, Mr. Andrews, I spoke my piece, and I just want the board to understand this, that more than probable, I'm going to be experiencing black water coming down my property in the future because of this concentration. My system is not designed for this. And like you said before, why did these people across the street let me put my system in? Why did they? Because my system was designed not to create a problem for the house across the street. Which actually there was a house there years ago that had a cesspool. But my system, this system is not considering my system. What they're doing here is not considering
black water. Point to the leaching field. Where's it? Where's the?
My leaching field
No,
is right here.
Yours, theirs.
I'm talking about my black water.
I know.
Theirs is down here
At the
somewhere.
bottom.
Yeah,
That's right.
that's their leaches. I'm not concerned
But
about
that's
that.
if black water was going to be generated, it would be coming out of the leaching field.
Yes,
But if you go 100 feet from that, water in the ground is drinkable.
the water, sir, I don't think you understand what I'm saying. The concentration of water inundating my system is going to dilute the black water, but the black water is going to be perking out the side of my hill across my property. That's the black water, is my black water that's leaching, that I have coming up from my solid tank, being pumped up into my raised system. So this is all my black water here. And it's designed to leach downward without a problem down across the street. Everything's going to leach that way. But now you're putting all this concentration of water that's going to find its way to my gravel bed, and that water is going to inundate and perk out the side of my hill and all across my property. That's my black water, not their black water, if you understand what I'm saying.
I do.
Sir, if you come to my house, you would understand if you looked at it, but there's no way I'm not going to have that problem.
There would be overflowing sewers all over town if buffer zones didn't work, if the 100-foot didn't work. Unfortunately, we're in catch-22.
So why aren't I being protected then? Why, when they have options?
I'll stop there.
Okay, I don't want to get argumentative. But sir,
No, sir. When you have regulations about sewer run through the Board of Health, we have a long record of knowing how to do sewer systems. Okay, in that design is protection for you, just as your neighbors are protected from your system, you will be protected from this system.
okay,
Okay.
that's all I'm asking.
But protection doesn't mean nobody can do anything else with their own land. We have to follow the state rules and the state regulations. If we do it here, we can hold them to a higher standard than the state will hold them.
Okay.
Why, stepping away for a second, why would you say it's better for us to turn this over to the state? And they're just going to say, yes.
I'm not, I
But
would like it stopped here.
But that's the position we're in. That's the state law we're in.
So why would this be passed here then tonight? Why would we pass it with this great
Because
concern?
I can pass it with conditions and the state will stamp it with no conditions.
Or twice so many homes.
Can we have the town engineer review this, understanding my situation here?
That is what the Stantec review is.
Okay,
That is what.
That's a third-party review.
and has he reviewed that yet?
Yes. Well, he's reviewed
He's reviewed.
the original documents. He has not reviewed their response to the documents, and we're going to make it contingent upon the stand text review for any discern. Now, you're gonna have to help us with language on that. So you can do it better than I can do it.
You suggested they may be open to a continuation for next month.
Well, not on the engineer. I mean, I think other than if he wants to respond to these comments, we're doing what we are required to do. You had the peer review. He came back. We did respond, so we'll give him an option to respond. But I want to keep it just to this report. You know, I understand the abutters concern,
Yeah.
but we meet state requirements and just like anybody else.
Yeah.
We actually had 2 repairs done, our engineer, and then you had your engineer review. So to me, we've accomplished that. We haven't got your response back, Dan Tech's response to that. So we're willing to hear that response and just keep it focused to that. Because we're really going around in circles here.
Yeah. And in the meantime, back to Eric's point of if there can be a suggested condition that might address the concerns raised by the abutter, that's worth exploring as well.
Yeah.
I don't have any suggestions off the top of my head, but
No,
Well, I think one suggestion was that an O&M report by Stan Tech, make sure we have that. And that obviously would be, required as ongoing part of the homeowners association or the condo association, excuse me.
I think they referred to the SWIP report, final SWIP.
And as far as
can I ask you? I know you two are professional engineers in this, and I actually have worked with people in your profession before. I understand the buffer zones. I know they work. I know the infiltration systems work. I've helped install these things, so I know they work. I understand, why a swale would get velocity going. Moving water, fast moving water can erode stuff like you wouldn't believe. Leaving something that buffer zone alone is a safe way to do it. So is there a vegetative way? I had to do water gardens down in Rhode Island with some very specific vegetation.
Nothing
that I found very effective.
almost nothing beats the actual forest limits. That's going to be the best. And, that's a permanent
Yeah, and that's zone.
back to the area.
That's undisturbed completely too.
Right.
It makes a big difference if the soil is compacted versus if it's kind of light and fluffy. It makes a big difference in how the water penetrates. An undisturbed buffer is much better than one that is you try to create, at least in the short term.
In the state law, you're not allowed to increase any runoff of the property.
Right.
Which we're not doing. We're not increasing any runoff. We are required by the state not to do it. We have our engineering stating that. We have the town's engineering stating that, and that will be a condition of the report, a condition of the permit as part of this SWAT plan that is required. And the ongoing maintenance plan.
I see an increase of the runoff. I see an increase.
Sir.
Okay.
You gotta let other people have a shot.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, you say.
Sure, and if you look at the comments from Stantec, it does say in that one particular location that they show increase pre and post in the 2, the 5, the 10, and as several others. And the applicant's response is, well, this is a small project. We don't have to comply with that. So, in fact, they are pointing out an increase in you can't have it both ways. You can't say we're not allowed to do it, but as part of that basis is that the regulations don't apply to us because it's a small project. So item 2 points that out, and item 3 also says that they recommend that there be perk tests done for the infiltrators. I honestly don't know how you design an infiltrator if you don't know what's going to work or not. I mean, if the soil is not.
Well, we just had, that was the conversation I had with you at the beginning of this meeting, was that, if you dig down, you start digging it and you hit ledge, that changes.
Well, changes everything. And
But if you listen to what they said, where they put the infiltrators are areas that they're filling.
And as you
So
know,
it's the details that matter in this sort of stuff. So if you're filling land and you're putting in gravel, you can control this material around those infiltrators better than if you're just going with whatever you happen to find there. So that's why I have to pay attention to these details that matter.
Yeah. Well, why is Stantec then recommending that the perk test be done in that location if it's not relevant?
Because we didn't know that those were areas that they're filling.
You have not gotten the comments back, Stantec's comments.
Absolutely.
Well,
We need to
okay.
make sure that
Yeah.
our decision reflects that.
Sure.
And I'll.
And another thought that occurred to me is that, talking to Mr. Simone, that I suggested he get a copy of his septic plan from Board of Health.
I made the same suggestion.
Yes, well, there was some talk about looking at it for the perk testing, but in terms of his concern, maybe in the review process, when Stantec is looking at it, they can make sure that they know how close it is to the property line and the fact that it's a grade system and the material that was brought in and so on and so forth, just to see if that is an added concern from an engineering standpoint in terms of what they're dealing with.
Well, raised systems are done for a couple different reasons. It can be the water level, water table.
Yeah.
It can be the soil conditions.
Could be either or. Yep. Or
Could
both.
be both.
Yeah.
The thing I like about a raised system is that he's probably bought a damn good gravel perks. You don't bring in clay. And so your engineer is going to specify what sort of gravel goes in. I think I spent about $4,000 worth of gravel in the last month and a half. Okay. I think what we need to do though is come up with a specific list of conditions based on Stantec review and the responses, and somehow leave enough wiggle room for the response of Stantec to their responses. What do you think? Yes, ma'am.
I just have, I'm a little beyond fighting for this to not happen.
Yeah.
I've already accepted the fact that I'm going to have new neighbors.
Yeah.
My concern is that I'm past this building spot, and we all know James Road can't handle 2 cars passing unless you go into a gullyish area. So what assurances do I have? I'm not stuck there because you're building. I mean, that needs to be understood that there are 3 residents beyond this building site that need to be able to have access freely. I don't want to have to go out and say, could somebody move a truck? I need to go someplace. So I'm sorry, I just finished.
Okay.
We had trees taken down a couple of months ago, and it really was hard to get down the street, because of the way they're parked. And, I'm just very concerned that I need to be able to get off that street. I have other things going on. And so that's all I'm looking for at this point, is that there is, that they understand that if there's this little old lady who wants to get out, I can get off my street.
we have not asked for a waiver of any requirement of the construction piece that they normally put in. I forget what section.
I will warn you that they bring in
Anything like that,
that's going to block the road.
Yeah.
for-
and I understand, but if I have warning,
Yeah.
I don't want to have to get up and all of a sudden there's absolutely no way to get up, because that's just not fair to.
And they have construction, during construction, they do have guidelines and requirements that it can only be a certain time of day. You can't do this, you can't do that, you can do this, you can do that. We're not asking to waive any of that.
Okay.
We're accepting
all I'm
those under
looking for.
condition. We do understand your concern. And it could be made known to the owners and during construction, which they were gonna be part of. You're gonna bring in a front loader or something that's gonna let the others know.
Right, okay, I appreciate it, thank you.
I will say I used pumped up pavement or touched the road on my site. Absolutely no dust very washed. And it was cheap. It's at $300 a load plus trucking, and it's held together. It's much better than riprap or anything else. So you can make so that like some sort of off-street parking is like the very first thing you put in. See, thank you. I think we got to take some time with this and do this right.
One question, do we have a, I'm understanding the final list of waivers?
We submitted it. We usually finalize it when during the negotiation of the permit and all the conditions that your attorney will go through and say, this should be accepted, this shouldn't be accepted.
Yeah.
There's some in there he probably says not applicable because we're not a subdivision and we have some relief from subdivision. So that's usually during the decision writing period and before you take the final.
Okay.
The final, yeah. Nate and Scott helping you on these conditions. They've seen conditions before like this.
Yeah. So, how do we want to do this? Amy, do you or him, who's gonna do the document for this?
I
For
think
conditions,
the,
not the lawyer.
yeah, well, yeah, I will,
Yeah.
I mean, I'll throw together as many conditions that I have and that have been suggested. And I'll float that obviously to the applicants as well as
Stantec.
Yeah, Bobrowski, law office we've been using to get comments back and make sure we have a final document that's agreeable to everyone.
Mr. Chairman, these letters also get advance copies of the conditions and we can so that we don't
If you write your email on, then
Sure.
Don, do you have my email?
email, so you can.
Are you gonna be proposing conditions?
Well, possibly, yeah.
Yeah, it'd be helpful if you get those. in.
Whoever would like that, just make sure you put your email on the sign.
How do we? If we can't rubber stamp something we don't vote on and see. How do we can't approve?
We can't approve condition.
So you have to have it on.
Final, we have to have another meeting to vote on the decision.
Okay,
Sorry.
Once the public hearing is closed, you have 40 days to make a decision. Within that time, if you close the public hearing tonight, it cannot be discussions amongst the abutters, providing information, us providing new information, be clarifications.
so we'd have to have a meeting just to close it out then.
You could have a meeting after next time we decide, you close the public hearing, and what usually happens, there's two approaches, closing the public hearing and everything's done through the attorneys. Basically, we are here, but we can't provide new information. We can only discuss conditions and the permit itself.
I just want to, yeah, I want to be able to take in any feedback that you have. Like, I like her suggestion, you know, it's practical, makes sense. If something like that comes up, we need as a board need to talk about it and do it. Unfortunately, we just,
You can do it.
we have until the 16th, and our meeting is the 17th.
Close the public.
Yeah, so can we get a 1 day extra extension to the 17th? We don't have to have a separate meeting. How's that?
Of course.
There we go. So we don't have to have a separate.
No, I think in the meantime, what I'm hearing is that you'll accept all of what is recommendations.
Well, we'll listen to them. We're not going to approve them because
No.
they recommend a theme park for God's sakes. You know, who knows what could be anything.
I just want to be able to get down the road.
And it's legitimate.
And I don't want black water coming across my property
You won't get black water coming across your property.
from my system. I don't
You
want my
won't.
system inundated. And so that's my concern is,
I agree with you. You don't want that, and I don't want that for you.
and I just need some sort of reassurance from the town. If that does happen, what are my alternatives? And I'll leave that at the meeting, whatever the decisions are made, because I feel more than probable that concentration, you're not introducing new water, but that water is being directed. All that water is being directed to my property line. Yes, there's no water, new water, but it's all being directed there, and it's gonna, that water's gonna find its way to that gravel bed, more than likely, and it's gonna inundate my system, and I'm gonna have a.
We will ask Stantec to take a look.
Okay, thank you.
But plan.
Okay,
Yeah.
and in the meantime, I should get my septic system to, who's that, the town engineer?
They were a consultant. They're paid to advise the board, to review what they're doing, to advise the board as to whether they think it meets state requirements.
So who will be looking at my septic system? Who should I get that to? So they can take this into consideration.
Yeah, I mean, that information can come to my office, and I can give that to Stantec, but
We'll take a copy too. They've been walking the site, they've been out to the site.
yeah, I was just hesitant to promise on behalf of Stantec that they'll evaluate a neighboring septic system, or leaching field, you know what I mean?
Really? So it's not a concern?
I'm not saying it's not a concern, it's a matter of process, because it's an application for this property, not your property. But I'll get it over to them, so long as we have
to ask them. They might come back and say, what we look at is the property line, and it is more water coming across it. And they may stop there.
I find that very troubling. I just thought that the board was protecting abutters, and basically what I'm hearing now is.
You love by having all
Unless
the
you-
engineers look at.
Then looking at the water flowing off of that property is protecting the abutters.
That's why there's a buffer zone in the back. That's why it's the infiltration units. But the funny thing is the infiltration units are there to actually protect you. And you're looking at it as these are going to hurt you.
Well, it's gonna introduce more water to my leaching area. In turn, it's gonna.
But it's no more water than what is already falling.
Well, sir, it is because of the concentration of where it is. It's no more water, but it's all concentrated on that hillside now, from the hardscape and from the infiltration system.
Unless your roof.
Okay, we're just gonna,
We just have to agree to disagree on this. I trust engineering. I unfortunately had a negative experience of having to be in the ditches, digging that sort of stuff. I've put in a rain garden. I thought it was, no offense, I thought it was a weed. Until it absolutely worked. And basically, when I put in a rain garden, it stopped my neighbor downhill from me, who used to have flooding problems. And the system that I put in stopped his flooding problem.
Well, I'm troubled by this. I really am, because I didn't realize that my leaching area wasn't even being considered. And from what I'm hearing now, it's not being considered. So I'm not gonna accept this.
Well,
Because I'm not gonna stand by and have my property ruined and my family,
not going to
my property contaminated.
Your property is not.
Well, nobody's interested in the plan for my septic system. Apparently, it's just sort of like, well, you could bring it if you want, but we're not gonna make any decisions based on that.
Stantec is an outside consulting firm. He's saying he can't promise what Stantec is going to do.
They're not here. We can't commit them on their behalf.
yeah, that's my point, is I can't commit them.
So I have no protection.
No, the very idea, the
My
fact that they.
septic system doesn't have any consideration.
Can I say something? It's possible Stantec may say, we'll look at it and.
It is entirely possible.
And that it may not be.
As a normal process, you do look at the surrounding to make sure you don't have private wells. And I'm not stating we went miles around, but you do normally, as part of review and part of the design, look at the abutters to see what's there and how to address it.
Yeah.
We're addressing it, giving the property, we're addressing this property per state requirements, which state does protect the abutters. So we're doing what the state asked to do to protect the abutters and to protect the groundwater.
And these are all well systems too.
Yeah.
That are actually going to pull the water up into the house. They'll use it. It actually is going to be deposited further down the hill at the bottom of the site into a leaching field down there. But that while it's in that transition, it will be in a piping system. The thing you have to understand is we can apply conditions. The state won't.
Well, I'm not gonna stand for it. I hope that Stantec does look at this, but I assure everybody that I'll spend my last dime to protect my property from being contaminated. And I'm sure it will be when that water finds its way to my gravel area. In a year, 2 years, I'm gonna be inundated and my black water is gonna be coming across my property. And I want that to be made note of, please, at this meeting. And I'd like to know what the board will do about that when the time comes.
We have heard your concerns. I know you don't agree that the engineering is designed to help protect you on that.
Well, it's been said, that's what's been said. They're not gonna even consider. Basically, they don't have to consider my.
Sir, we don't know what stands there.
Right, just said.
Well, let's hope that they do.
But this is, right, you know, we've gone round and round.
Yes, we have.
I think what we need to do, sit down. Assuming we should do that now and make a specific list of have the conditions, or you want to do that since we do have that extra day. Get all the conditions. If you neighbors come up with other specific ideas, reasonable ideas, I think yours is extremely reasonable. We'll do that. I understand your point on the swales. I hadn't thought about that. That is smart.
We will obviously, we have been, to sit with Stan and go through this and our responses and make sure we're all on the same page prior to the next week.
Okay.
Instead of emails back and
If we
forth.
can have it all wrapped up, we can get it this decision document out to us.
Yes, a draft.
Because
After the next
the
meeting.
17th is. And thank you for giving us that extension.
Oh, here.
I mean,
You guys have to-
the decision, I mean, what, I'll say what's most important, the conditions are obviously a huge portion of that document. So that's what you want to, and any waivers obviously as well. So those are the things you'll want to have.
Yeah, because we've got to have those
But-
waivers clearly delineated.
Yeah.
We've
I'm
had
sorry,
so many
Richard.
back and forths on stuff. We can just have everything cleared out, specific waivers, specific.
It's the conditions.
I mean,
together.
And you have 40 days from the hearing to get the final decision completed. So,
Yeah.
you know, it's not like you're gonna stop. If something conditions are gonna go back. You might figure out you want to think of one after. That's what the 40 days is for. So we understand.
It's fine.
All right. Can I get a motion to continue this to the next meeting?
We say May
May
17th.
right?
Would we continue this public hearing until May 17th?
Second motion.
Okay, make it unanimous.
So contingent on us receiving a 1 day extension.
1 day extension. Yes, and thank you. For
Yeah, no
Bill Andrews, aye.
Eric Russell.
Okay.
Let to you.
Thank you. And any other business before the board tonight?
Just the minutes that will be forwarded. They were forwarded and can be reviewed at the next meeting.
So, okay.
I'm sorry. I did add it to my checklist though, so that's good.
We can motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor, say, Bill Andrews, make the unanimous, Bill Andrews, aye.
Russell, aye.
Guys, thank you very much. Thank you. I'm very glad you guys